Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be doing a how I take notes. So usually I take notes on paper, but just so that you could see the notes more clearly, I decided to do this on my iPad. But without further ado, let's head on straight into this video. When I'm taking notes, I usually use lined paper, and there's also a way on notes where you can change it to lined paper, and this helps me just write neatly. And usually for my titles, I'll go ahead and take my mild liners, and I would take the pen tip and I would go ahead and write the title. And then, usually taking a Pilot G2 pen that matches the color of the mild liner, I'll go ahead and add this shadow. And then I'll go ahead and write the lesson topic and the date, just so that I can easily find everything. There are a bunch of different styles for different headings. Here are just a couple. I know they're not the best, but you can obviously experiment, and there are plenty on different sites such as Pinterest for inspiration. In terms of formatting for my notes, usually I would take the colored pen and I'd write the subheading like this. I would use 2 lines and then underline them. Now sometimes if I don't have the time to switch out my pens, I would write it in the same color as the rest of the main text, but I would underline it just so that it pops up. And I always write my information in bullet points and fragments, and I don't add periods to the end of my bullet points because for some reason that annoys me. And I also make sure that I use abbreviations, such as instead of different, I wrote DIFF dot. And I also use different kinds of bullet points to signify when I'm indenting or adding information furthermore into that line above it, if that makes sense. And I would also indent it. And for any key information, usually I would just go in and highlight it a bit later, or just when there's a little break where the teacher's not talking, and I'll just go ahead and highlight any important information, just so that when I'm reviewing my notes, I can know, okay, that's important and that might be on a test. And just by looking at this first part of this video, you can probably tell that I love adding color to my notes, but that's just because I'm a visual learner. And there are a bunch of different kinds of learners, auditory learners, visual learners, etc. So you just need to look at the way that you learn best, and then go ahead and try to imply that in your notes. So let's say that you're an auditory learner. Well, you can go ahead and, if your teacher allows you, record the lesson so you can listen to it later, or record yourself explaining it, or record someone else explaining it. And since I'm a visual learner, I also use a bunch of diagrams. So here, enjoy my beautiful segment of drawing the water cycle. But just in all seriousness, I actually do add a bunch of diagrams, especially in classes like science, just because it helps me visualize what's happening, and it also allows me to just see what's happening. It also adds more visual aspects, and for me that's really useful. And obviously with the pen and paper, I don't have the flexibility to move the drawings, but I still like to try and draw it so that it can help me learn later. And to better explain the diagram, I usually add tiny notes on the side or add arrows just to help me know what the diagram's about. And I usually don't change the style of my subheadings as I go further into my notes. I just like to keep it as simple as possible so that I can refer to it later very quickly. So if there are steps or different kinds of kind of like lists, I do this thing kind of where I would write it, and then so let's say I'm writing about erosion. I'm just going to explain it like this because this is a lot easier. So let's say we're writing about erosion. So there are different kinds of erosion, that like different ways it can happen. So what I would do is I would go ahead and write down in caps or just regularly the type of erosion, and then I would underline it and add notes. So instead here of showing my notes, I'm actually going to cut it and then put a picture of my actual notes so that you can see kind of how I do it. So here are my physical notes, and as you can see, it looks like this, and this helps me so that I can add notes for each individual one. And as you can see, I also wrote if it's slow or fast. And I personally like this system because it can be under one topic, but it's each individual. So I would have the subheading, but I would also have these sub-headings. And it helps me just so that I can further break down everything. Now, if there's a step to the process, if there are steps to this process, what I would do is I would take the highlighter and I would write 1, 2, 3 in big letters, and then with my normal pen, I would just write what the step does, and I would write it like this. And this allows me so that I have a bunch of room and so I can distinguish the different steps. And lastly, I always make sure that I use my margins for extra notes or clarification or page numbers, just so that if I'm looking for more in detail about that part of the text and the teacher is just reiterating what's in the text, instead of rewriting all of that, I would reference it to the book just so that I can save more room for other stuff. You could use the margins provided on a normal notebook, or you can draw your own. And that's it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you like, and it would mean the world to me if you subscribed and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I post a brand new video. And if you have any suggestions for any of my student lifestyle and organization videos, or for my math videos, please comment on my discussion page. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Bye!